What I see people do regularly is fail to do their homework because they don't quite understand how to do their homework before they go in for a meeting anywhere in the Washington environment, anywhere really in the executive or congressional lanes. And some people don't recognize that there are some very learnable tools that can readily be adapted in any situation so that anyone can command a room. But we sometimes let ego get in the way, and we think that we can just tough it out, and we're going to go in there, and I know how to communicate. I've been a leader my whole career. And they don't recognize that they've blown the meeting before they ever showed up for the meeting. And it might have happened in the most subtle of ways. They misused a phrase. They misunderstood their reporting arrangement for an individual. They didn't distill their message down to something very, very tight. They brought in their PowerPoint deck and they wanted to go through the entire deck, and they weren't really mindful of the clock. And there are a lot of ways to fix those sort of problems that sound so simple, but when they accumulate, they destroy credibility. I know you've been on the receiving end of many, many briefs, probably thousands of briefs. What do you see when somebody walks in the door, or what are some of the red flags that jump out that are so avoidable?
I completely agree with everything that you've said, Gene, and I saw that time and time again. So as you know, I spent about 17 and a half years working with the Navy as a contracting officer at some of the Navy's largest buying commands. So we are talking about the commands that are obligating and putting billions of dollars a year onto contract. And so as a result, I worked with hundreds of companies during my tenure as a contracting officer. And I think in addition to the homework piece that you noted, the thing that I really noted and was frustrating was that companies didn't necessarily recognize how to have a true conversation in trying to sell their products and services to the government. Really, I think companies would come in and they would give you the typical pitch that they would give to any customer. But when you're talking to the government, it's a very different kind of customer-supplier relationship than what you might have on the commercial side. And what I always wanted to hear was, ask me some questions. Ask me about some of the challenges that I'm facing right now. Ask me how you can offer your supply or your service in order to solve that problem, instead of coming in with a solution in search of a problem. And so I think that so many people in the business development environment miss that critical piece and miss the opportunity to talk very strategically to different stakeholders. Having a conversation with me as a contracting officer was very different from a company coming in and speaking to the admiral, speaking to the PEO, or even speaking to the program manager directly about something. And so I think understanding different stakeholders and how to really create a more nuanced pitch or more nuanced talking points in order to resonate with those specific people is super important. And I think while it sounds intuitive, it's something that so many people miss.
You know, Kate, when I take people to congressional meetings on Capitol Hill, and I'm usually taking a president or a CEO of a company, I will spend time with that person specifically rehearsing the presentation. And I don't mean going slide by slide, because we don't use slides in that setting. We don't try to cover everything that we know. We try to talk about what needs to be said and how to control that meeting. And to rehearse, we might set up a Zoom call, or we might actually meet for breakfast right before the meeting is about to go down, and we'll do a little bit of role play. And some people are uncomfortable in a role play environment. Their ego gets in the way because nobody wants to look like they don't know what they're doing, or they don't want to be seen as making a mistake. But unknowingly, they're willing to make that mistake in front of the audience that really matters. Role play helps, and turning a mirror on somebody so that they can see themselves really helps. People that do media, they watch video of themselves so that they can learn what are their tics, what are the phrases that they fall back on that often get overused. And people don't recognize that they have these little crutches that creep into their presentation, and that means they're not really as good as they think they are. And so you need somebody objective to help guide, here's where you're missing, here's where you can be stronger, Here's where you can use words that will sound more powerful and more informative. And you can use fewer words to convey a very pressing concept that really matters to that audience. But you have to be a little bit vulnerable to allow for that to take place. And as you and I were talking about, how could we help companies? We want to set up a day where people can come and learn some of these tips and tricks and go through the workshop sort of experience of feeling the pressure, being a little vulnerable in front of people that you don't know, and commanding a room or commanding a message in front of people that you might not know. When you received briefs, could you tell if somebody was sort of winging it or counting on their charisma to carry the day?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know it pretty quickly. I often will liken these sort of briefs to speed dating. You generally know within the first 60 seconds whether it's going to go well or not. And so I think that first minute when a company is coming in with their pitch, how they're setting up the discussion tells you everything that you need to know about how the next 15, 20, 30 minutes, or sometimes even an hour is going to play out. And so I think that first minute or even 2 minutes is so critical. And I think, Jean, as you said, that's really where you and I can help companies. I think we can help people to really take the time to frame where they want to go with the discussion. And that's everything from what are my goals and expectations coming out of this meeting, and then what's the government's goal and expectation coming out of this meeting, and how can I try to meet that? I think we can really help people understand how to frame those first few minutes to set up the rest of the brief or the rest of the pitch or the rest of the conversation for optimal success. And as you said, one of the ways I think we could really do that is providing an experience where people can actually record themselves trying how they would normally do it. So they come in on the first day and they sort of do a video of how they would typically go and pitch a government customer, and then spend a day with us, let us teach you, and then do the recording again at the end and see how you've improved.
And when you want to capture it from the start like that, that's why we named this program Capture It From the Start, you want to do it in a place that's fun to go to. So we've chosen Orlando, and we want to do it in the winter to make it even more appealing. And we want to tie it to a time when you might need a break, and you might be in a position to take a break, but that also makes sense for where we are in a particular fiscal year. As we all know, there are multiple fiscal years unfolding at any one time. January is kind of a reset time in the year. There's often a new Congress coming in. This year there'll be a new president coming in. Everybody feels like it's a clean slate. Well, it's a great time to sneak off for one day to Orlando and let Kate, let Jean help you figure out how to do this even better so that 2025 is the banner year and you don't have to keep doing the same thing over and over again. How excited are you to go to Orlando?
I'm so excited. And I think too, the timing of this day to spend with you and I also comes in advance of the big trade show season. And I think that's so key as you are looking toward the business development horizon and the opportunities to start engaging with government customers. So come spend the day with us. Do it before AFCEA West. Do it before Sea Aerospace. Do it before you actually have to get in front of your government customers so that you can take these tools and then go implement them.
So Kate, any sort of program like this costs a little bit of money to put on. It costs a little bit of money to attend. And so we've priced it in ways that might entice people to sign up early. The earlier you sign up, the more affordable it is. And something that I've observed in my time in corporate and then in post-corporate advising companies is that many people who have come into the defense industry from active duty, they kind of miss that while they were on active duty, Uncle Sugar was paying for the training. And now a company has to pay for your training, or the individual has to pay for their training. And sometimes it's a mental hurdle to get over that, hey, if the company won't pay for this, this is something that is so worthwhile, you need to invest in yourself. And so if you're somebody who makes hundreds of thousands of dollars as a business developer or salesperson, or you have the potential to make millions for your own company, or you have access to bonus opportunities based on how well you do in this environment, you probably can afford to spend a few $100s on yourself to advance your own skills. This is the best ROI that you'll ever see in professional development training specific to selling into the government environment.
I think that's exactly right, Gene. And I was going to say the same thing about a massive return on investment from spending this time with you and I. And I think the beauty is that you and I have sat with the core decision makers in the government, both on the legislative side in Congress, also on the program side, the contracting side, finance. I mean, we've been in the room with these decision makers, and we've been the decision makers ourselves in our former professional lives. And so I think we can really provide such a unique perspective that will create a really massive return on investment in a very short period of time.
So Kate, let's do this. Let's go to Orlando, January 17th, 2025. It's going to be a one-day event, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And we might even have a special opportunity that night, January 17th. So you want to be able to stick around. I look forward to it. Kate, how excited are you?
I am absolutely thrilled, and I am so excited to be doing this with you in particular, Gene, because I think we really cover the full spectrum of the sales process, from that really early legislative period, which is so critical to ensuring that funds get appropriated at the right time and in the right place, all the way through the contractual execution timing, which is really where so much of my experience comes into play.
You said it, Kate. We cover both sides of the river, end to end, the full funding process from beginning to end. There is no part of it wherever you fit into that part of the equation. And everybody in business has a different role that they play, but we can speak to every piece of it from one point to the end point, from the beginning to the end. One more time. From the beginning to the end. All right, Kate, I look forward to seeing you there.